I'm back. Welcome to the 16th episode in our video series. I'm Dr. David Van Nuys, co-author with Michael Kelleher of the book, This is the Zodiac Speaking, Into the Mind of a Serial Killer. By now, I'm going to assume that you've seen my previous 15 YouTube installments. I appreciate all the comments that a number of you have posted, and once again, despite my best intentions, I'm sorry that there's been such a long break since the last one. Reading through your requests that I continue with this exercise has gotten me fired up, so here we go again. Now, in the last episode, I went over the Zodiac's letter to attorney Melvin Belli. Now I'm going to break from form by not analyzing one of his letters, but by instead spending a bit about his abduction of Kathy Johns. Now, for anyone who might not be familiar with this incident, I'll try to sketch it out briefly here. You can read about it in more detail in our book, as well as other sources. 5 months go by after the killing of Paul Stine and the subsequent plea for help letter to attorney Melvin Belli. Then, on the night of March 22, 1970, Kathy Johns is making a 500-mile drive from Southern California to visit her mother in Petaluma. She's 7 months pregnant and is also accompanied by her 10-month-old daughter. It's late at night and she's on a small road just off I-5 near Modesto in Central California. She notices a car behind her, which eventually overtakes her, and the driver yells out to her that one of her rear wheels is wobbling. Now, she's reluctant to pull over on this dark stretch, but she does so when she reaches the junction with I-5. The stranger pulls up behind her and approaches her car. She feels more at ease when she sees that he's neatly dressed. He has a lug wrench in his hand and is offering to tighten up the nuts on the wobbly wheel. She agrees, and he goes to the back of her car and works on the wheel, and then comes back to the driver's side window to tell her it's all fixed. He goes back to his car and pulls out in front of her. Kathy pulls out onto I-5 to resume her trip, but doesn't get very far before the rear wheel falls off. The stranger who had pulled in front of her sees her predicament and backs up, ostensibly to help her out. After inspecting the incapacitated rear axle, he offers to drive her to a nearby gas station. Since he's seemingly been so helpful and she doesn't want to be stranded in the middle of nowhere at midnight, she accepts his offer. She gathers up her 10-month-old daughter and gets in his car. Instead of stopping at the gas station, though, he drives right past it and past several exits and eventually turns off onto a deserted road. Eventually, Kathy demands to know what's going on. "Do you always go around helping people on the road like this?" His reply is ominous. "When I get through with them, they don't need any help." He proceeds to drive her around for several hours, periodically announcing that he's going to kill her and her baby. After several hours of this, Kathy gets a lucky break when he's forced to slow down. She grabs her baby and bails from the car and hides in a culvert. The stranger stops his car and he's searching for her with a flashlight when a big rig pulls up, and the big rig's driver demands to know what he's searching for. So the stranger gets back in his car and drives off. Kathy gets up from her hiding place and eventually ends up reporting the crime at a small nearby police station. Now, while she's making her terrified and terrifying report, she sees a wanted poster on the wall with the police sketch of the Zodiac. She immediately recognizes this as her abductor. She was able to give the most detailed description of the Zodiac yet, describing him as about 30 years old, a bit stocky, around 5 foot 9 inches tall and 170 pounds, light brown crew-cut hair, small acne scars around his chin, neatly dressed in a white shirt, dark brown crew-cut hair. Oh, I already mentioned that part. Dressed in a white shirt, dark windbreaker, and dark bell-bottom pants. She notices his shoes are highly shined and something about him suggests that he's been in the military, perhaps the Navy. He also wore black-rimmed glasses held by an elastic band. Interestingly, she noticed that her abductor's car was strewn with junk, including in the back seat what looked like a child's clothing. Now, when Johns was returned to her car, they found that the Zodiac had returned and set the interior on fire, completely gutting it. Personally, I was surprised that the recent Zodiac movie left out this rather dramatic and disturbing detail of the car having been set on fire. There was some initial doubt in some quarters as to whether the abductor really was the famous killer, but the Zodiac later confirmed the incident himself in a letter to the San Francisco Chronicle, alluding to this event, which had had no previous media coverage. So what are we to make of this bizarre incident? Why did the Zodiac not carry through with his threats to kill Kathy Johns and her daughter? Why did he drive around aimlessly for several hours? Michael Kelleher, the lead author on our book, takes this as evidence that the Zodiac was becoming disorganized, was in effect losing it, and unable to continue his murderous career. I have a somewhat different take. I believe that there were multiple personalities struggling within Zodiac, and that there was a very sick killer personality and a relatively healthier one that was struggling to come to the surface. I think we'll see additional, although very fragmentary, evidence of this in some of the later letters to come. Clearly, there was great internal conflict going on during those hours of pointless driving around in the desert. Of course, there are other possibilities as well. Perhaps he was unwilling to kill this pregnant mother, either because of her pregnancy or the presence of her 10-month-old daughter, or both. The children's clothing in the back seat raises the possibility that he may have been a family man, despite earlier speculation to the contrary. Our profile suggested that he lived alone, but as my co-author points out, he may not have always lived alone. There's also the possibility that the Zodiac was losing his nerve. He came pretty close to getting apprehended after the Paul Stine murder in San Francisco. That was the last documented murder committed by Zodiac, though he bragged of others. Did that close call after Paul Stine scare him off? As I say, I've gone way out on a limb and posed a multiple personality hypothesis, and I hope to support that in future episodes, but I'm the first to admit that my evidence is fragmentary and hardly conclusive. One final note. In the book, I came down on the side that says that Zodiac was not the Riverside killer of Cherry Joe Bates, and I know that's been debated a lot in the comments to this series. However, I now do note that both the killer and the Zodiac in this Kathy Johns incident set up the victim by disabling their car. Among the comments that have been posted here, people have asked whether I think the Zodiac is still alive. If I'm on the right track with my multiple personality hypothesis, then there's a good chance that he is still alive. Whether his current personality would have any recollection of these events, I'm not sure. Please watch for subsequent episodes in which I'll continue to move through the Zodiac material, and if you're interested in psychology, be sure to check out my podcast series, Shrink Wrap Radio, at www.shrinkwrapradio.com, or you can just go to psychologypodcast.com. Until next time.